sound saying, there we go. But yes, I believe that those who are here are ready to hear some of this information. And it is about, awakening and understanding who we really are. And these beings of light are here to help us do that. So, there's a lot of places we can start with this, but I know that you and I talked a little bit earlier today about the true, history of humans and how we, our DNA was kind of not as activated as or was just, hasn't been what it could be, what it once was. And I think that might be a good place to start. Maybe if you could share your perspective on, who and like, who are some of these beings and how can they help us as humans really understand who we are?
Right. And, I always go back to Dolores Cannon. And I mean, if anyone has read her books, she is a treasure trove, a gift to us, to humanity. And, she always comes back around to this really graspable and understandable analogy where she talks about, humanity, if at some point in the distant future, we are technologically advanced enough to have interstellar travel and we're able to go through the galaxies and we find a planet that's perfect for life, right? Has everything that we need, the right atmosphere, it's got it all. And, if we're that far along in our advancement, you would think that us as humans and the curiosity we have, we would want to see if we could experiment with life on that planet, if we could seed that planet with life and to see what would happen, a big experiment. Would it grow? Would it evolve? What would happen? And so let's just say that we do that and we introduce some species from, our planet, our home planet, other places that we've been traveling around. We introduce those species and over time we watch as they begin to evolve and grow. And we want to, play with the genetics and see what we can do. So we start manipulating, we start adjusting, for the planet itself. And then over time, these species get more and more evolved. They start developing, a consciousness to the point where they're hominids, they're walking around, they're getting there. So we drop in and we start giving them some more, tools because we want to see what can happen. We want to see how far we can take that experiment. And so we keep adjusting and giving information. And then all of a sudden it gets to the point where this species starts destroying itself. We start giving them technology and new, ways of existing. And they're using that not for the good that we intended, but they start hurting themselves, hurting their planet. And so that's where we're at right now, as you can see that Earth is one big experiment. We've been seeded from all over galaxies, universes, and we're at this point right now where our, we're talking like our parents, our galactic parents are looking at us now being like, what are you guys doing? We're destroying the planet. We're destroying each other. We kill, we murder, we war. And it's gotten to this point where the implications of the damage that we're about to cause and are causing is rippling through dimensions, rippling through universes. And so that's why right now we're seeing a lot more activity. There's a lot more galactic energy coming forth because it doesn't affect just humanity, it's affecting everybody. So I think that, that's my understanding. And I think it's a pretty good explanation of what's been going on. It makes it a little more digestible. They're not, messing with us to mess with us. They're helping us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some of them are, I think.
Some of them, right. We're talking about that duality earlier.
Yes. And I think, and feel free to anybody, I see a few comments here. Feel free to ask any questions while I'm listening. I'm going to post some resources and some links to places that we talked about, some books that people might want to check out. And so for me, I started my awakening and my introduction to multidimensional beings started with the Pleiadians and the book I read by Barbara Marciniak called Bringers of the Dawn, which was a channeled book. And my friend gave it to me and it absolutely blew my mind.
Activate you.
Yes, it was an activation. And the Pleiadians are, benevolent, beings of light. They're here with us. They're part of who we are, part of them. We carry their genetics.
Absolutely.
But in that book was a lot of information about just what's happened to us. And like so that analogy you used, that's what happened. That's how humans were created, right? Is
Right.
from different, and from my understanding, and you can feel free to chime in, of course, with what you feel is true, because we're just piecing all this together. We're piecing like what actually happened. And from my understanding, there's been so many different beings from different planets and different solar systems coming to Earth for, hundreds of thousands of years. I don't know exactly, maybe it's 300,000 years, maybe it's 500,000 years ago, maybe more. And in different waves, like, so, of different beings who've tried to kind of create a species of humans, hybridized humans from apes and their own DNA, and from these other beings' DNA. And so it's like, we're like this, like kind of like us as Americans, like a melting pot or whatever they call it, salad bowl of like different, and, so that, I think, there was another book I read called Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life by Melchizedek. And in that book, similar to the Bringers of the Dawn, and I've picked up on this information from a lot of different places. We talked about, Gaia. There's some, information on Gaia that I actually watched this series by Mateus Di Stefano, which is about
oh my gosh,
Akashic records. And that's, of course, I do Akashic records. And anyway, and you're doing the quantum hypnosis, healing, or with Dolores Cannon. Anyway, but in those books, it keeps coming back over and over and over. And from what my understanding is that at some point along the way, there was these beings who came and were basically trying to like colonize Earth and use Earth for resources, for gold, and they're often known as the Anunnaki, and from the planet of I think either they or somebody else was from the planet Nibiru, and it's hard to kind of piece it all together, but ended up creating a race of people, or they were the race called the Nephilim, which we see reference in the Bible, like, gods, or like giants and gods. And so, it was it was for better or for worse that they were like we talked about before, like our parents. They were a little overly controlling of us.
A little bit.
They cared about it, but they also wanted to control us, and they were kind of using us for their own benefit. And so one thing that eventually happened was that we were kind of put in this like, or
quarantine.
Yeah, I guess like a quarantine. So we weren't the antennas were dismantled. So we weren't, our third eyes weren't open. So we didn't really know who we are. And we weren't awakened. And we were basically in this form of slumber. Is that what you kind of, now we're coming out of that, right?
No, I mean, I completely agree with everything you're saying. And, like you were saying before, all of this is coming up now. It's all been there. It's all been hidden. You look at, I was just watching an episode of Open Minds with Daniel Sheehan, and he was talking about how in the Vatican, there are all of these art pieces that have been hidden away that depict images of the UFOs and of these beings. And this is throughout all of the ancient cultures on this planet. You can go through every single one. Native Americans, Aborigine people. There are stories of these beings coming down, of these gods, these angels who came down and gave them the gift of, agriculture. Those weren't gods. They were these beings that have been watching humanity grow from the beginning. So, I mean, it goes so deep and so long. We can't get into the full depth of it here in like this hour conversation, but that definitely skims the surface of it. And the human being originally was designed to have 13 strands of DNA, and they manipulated that DNA so that we have these 2 strands. And that means that all of these abilities that we've been given from our galactic families have been shut off. And now they're being activated again. With this acceleration of the earth energies, with the ascension of humanity, the collective consciousness is waking up. It's waking up the DNA. So, I mean, you see these children now who are incarnating, they're starseeds. These kids here, they're doing, I just watched a video before of this little girl. She was like 2 or 3 years old, and she's sitting on her, it gives me chills. She was sitting on her kitchen floor, pushing a piece of paper around with her mind. And there's no fan. She's not blowing it. These are the kids that are coming in right now. They're coming into this higher vibration where they're able to remember their gifts. The veil isn't up anymore. It's dissolving away.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. And that is, yeah, I was actually just talking about this to a client this morning who was saying to me, you know, she works in a pretty traditional profession. She was saying, you know, I'm sharing books with people about Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian Weiss, like that book, all that was like a classic on past lives. And she said, my friends are interested in it, and they've never, we were talking about these things and we never used to talk about this stuff. And she was like, why is that? And I was saying, like, well, it's like you said, like it is because we're in this new cycle. And there's actually another woman who does a great job talking about this, Barbara Hand Clow, who talks about,
God.
I think it's the Incan calendar, or like it's the cycles. And this was also the Mayan calendar that these, I think it's like 20,000 year cycles. And I think 20,000 years. And like for so long. And so the last cycle we were in began around the time of the Atlantis, when humanity, we fell from consciousness. We forgot who we were. We fell into ego. And so we've been in that age of slumber and of separation, like you said, of war, of division, of conflict, until, what was it? 2012, right? Is that when it shifted? Like the end, that was the age of separation, ended in the age of Aquarius, or the age of Pisces, really, in the age of Aquarius. And so we're still babies in this new age, but that is why, you know, and people are awakening. Of course, what we're seeing, we don't need to go into that in this video, but we're seeing a lot of people who've been trying to keep us in a state of slumber, who think they control things. I like to say they think they control things. I don't want to give them more power they need. Like pulling out a lot of control and manipulation over the past year. But like, the awakening can't be stopped.
No, it can't. And that's exactly what's happening right now. I mean, from the inside, when you're in it, it looks like utter chaos everywhere, destruction, disease, you know, political issues, war everywhere. But this is part of the purging. All of that needs to come up. It needs to come up into the light. It's like popping a zit is how I see it in my head. You know, we have to, all the corruption needs to come up and out so that we can flush it out and move into this golden age of consciousness. And we're on this brink of the two earths. I'm sure you've heard of like the new earth, and we're there. And I'm sure a lot of people can kind of see themselves almost fluctuating in and out of that old earth and new earth. You see all of that darkness, all the despair, and you can slip into it, but then you pop out on the other side and you see all the beauty that's coming from it, all the connectivity, the unity, this new renaissance we're going through. And it's up to us to decide individually and as a collective, what frame of consciousness you want to operate in. Because as a collective, we're the ones that are solidifying that timeline. And that's what it is. It's a splitting of timelines right now. If we want to get quantum with it, you know, and that's what's going to happen. Certain beings are going to decide to go into the new earth and ride that wave. Others have lessons to learn on a soul level, and they'll stick with the darkness, but that's their choice.
That's right. And there are these, bifurcation. Yes. And there are these beings, you know, I think we're starting to see disclosure happening in the media, you know, reports of UFOs. And I think, you know, although I think we will start to see, and Dr. Stephen Greer, who you told me about that amazing movie, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, which I highly recommend, right? Which you recommended.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little more about that in a minute, or just what his work. But of course, you know, the media and governments are going to try to make it look scary. They're here and they're going to attack us and all this stuff, when in reality they've been here for so like millennia, ever since we can remember, evidenced with all these indigenous people. And they've just been, and most of them are here as benevolent, loving ones, and they're trying to help us, and they're peaceful, and they've even like dismantled some nuclear reactors, and there's crop soldiers.
Nuclear missiles. I mean, yeah.
And so that's what, and so I think it's, you know, what's so exciting about this time is that we are now just becoming aware of these beings and learning to move past our own fear and pass the narrative, oh, you're crazy if you believe in this. That's what we've been, that's part of the, the programming. And that we're also learning to raise our vibration, and which really means like come into our light bodies and activate our divine essence so we can actually communicate with them, because that's how they operate, is on frequency. So can you talk about that, because you've done it in your own life, about how does that, like how can we connect with them and how can we let them help us, I guess. That's a big question. I don't know if your internet is there.
Wait, hold on. That whole chunk just cut out. Say it one more time.
Okay. So how can we...
Can you see me?
Yes, I can see you. Yeah. So what I just said was, how can we connect with these beings who really want to help us? How can we allow them to help us? How can we communicate with them? How can we, align our, match their frequency?
Right.
Because you've done that.
That is a big question. Yeah, it is a big question. And there's so many layers to it because, let's see, where do I want to start with this? So I think we should kind of break it down by these different types of beings. We have these interfrequential beings that are operating in higher dimensions, and then we have the extraterrestrials, and those are interstellar beings who come in a physical form. But there's also the beings who are operating, like you said, in their light bodies. They're at such a high vibration that they don't manifest physically. And if you would have told me, let's see, a year and a half ago that this is what I would be talking about, I would have laughed you to the moon. I would have never believed you. That was not what I was into at all. I had a friend who invited me to an ET conference at the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors in New York. And I really didn't want to go. It didn't interest me. I didn't think it was something I wanted to do, but I went and it blew my mind wide open. And in a meditation that we did in that setting, I ended up seeing these beings around me, and that I myself was one of them. And, I'm a healer, and in my healing sessions, I've seen these beings, but I didn't know what they were. I just knew they were helping. And from that point on, I had this endless curiosity, this thirst for knowledge. And I just went all the way down the rabbit hole to the point where I was like, I need to make contact. I need to understand everything. I know them. I feel that connection. And Dr. Stephen Greer, bless this man, over and over and over again. I mean, we do not deserve him. We do, but he has put everything on the line to give us the information he has. And he has developed this protocol. That's the CE5 protocol, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. And what that means, this Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, is human-initiated contact, peaceful contact with these extraterrestrial interdimensional entities. And so, because everything is vibration and the power of thought it's so much more powerful than we could ever imagine. We have the ability to tune into frequencies and to, navigate through the web of existence to call in certain vibrations to match us. And what that means is that by elevating our own frequency through our elevated emotions, through our conscious intention, we can call them to us. It's not like we're calling them on the phone, but we're calling them through consciousness. And so the first time that I had a contact experience, I went out for it was my birthday, actually. I went out for a walk with my dog. I had just watched Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. My heart was blown open. I was in such a state of unity, of love. And I did the CE5 protocol, went outside for a walk. And sure enough, I look up and I saw this holographic, it looked like a bean. And I thought it was a spot in my vision from staring at a light too long. And so I moved and it goes, shoop. And then I was like, wait, is that them? Is that you guys? And it goes, choo, 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 and starts going all the way around the sky. And I'm standing there in the street crying because it hit me in that moment that it wasn't just an object. It wasn't just a UFO, that there were beings that connected to me, that they heard me. I was connected to them. And it was one of those moments that changed me for the rest of my life. So what I'll say to your question is, first of all, I want everyone to go watch CE5, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. That's going to give you more information than you probably want, but it's amazing documentary. And this process is you're going in with this intention of making peaceful contact with these beings. And what we were talking about a little bit before, the importance of having your heart open, of going into it with an open mind, with love, with gratitude, with unity consciousness, because in that elevated state of emotion, your frequency, your vibration is raised. And they are on such a high frequency that we need to lift ours to meet them. They can't lower all the way down into third density, into our existence. They can't do it. Way.
Oh,
there?
yeah. Can you say that again? You just said they can't lower it. They can't lower to our frequency. They can't do it. And then something, whatever you said, just cut out.
Right. And so we just have to raise ours to meet them.
Yeah.
So this isn't a party trick. This isn't something that you're going to do, you know, just for fun, to show off. They're traveling through space and time to meet us here. This has to be something that's taken seriously, and it has to be done with an abundance of love, because that's how you're going to make contact. And we were talking earlier, you know, the fear piece is a big thing, because human consciousness, ego, does not like the unknown. It doesn't want, it likes being in control. It wants to be able to predict everything. So what I would say to your human fear, and I've had to work through it on many layers, many levels, is ask them for help with your fear. And that's what I did that first night. I felt that fear come up and I asked them, help me with this. And it was like it melted away, and I was able to just have this beautiful experience.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you have a sense of who that, I mean, you may not, because it's harder we know, but who you feel maybe that was zipping through the sky?
Yeah, I feel a very strong connection to the Pleiadians. And that was one thing we connected over when we first met, because I felt like we both were kind of like, I don't know, is she gonna know what that is? And then we both said it and we're like, oh my God, okay. So I felt it was I felt that strong Pleiadian energy. But the thing is that they're traveling through time. They're from the future. And so those beings that we're connecting with very well may be us. You know, they might be us just in the future, coming back to check on us and to point us in the right direction.
Wow. Unbelievable. That's amazing. Somebody here, I'm just reading a few of the comments. I don't know if you can't see these, I don't think, but somebody said that she believes or has heard that some aliens are actually angels. What do you think about that? It's interesting.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we can get into the whole, hierarchy of consciousness, but I think that through time, and especially through a religious perspective, a lot of the experiences people have had, with angelic beings, of course, angels do exist. They're a fractal of consciousness. They're a vibration themselves. But a lot of these experiences people have could very well be ET experiences or interdimensional, beings coming through. But what's the difference?
Right.
What is the difference? It's all frequency. It's all vibration. They're just a fractal of consciousness that is much closer to source energy than we are.
Yeah. And there's some, I've heard somewhere that Jesus was maybe like Arcturian.
I've heard Pleiadian. I've heard Arcturian.
Right. And yes, that he would. And so people that don't know Arcturian, they're another race, I guess, or just beings that are very high vibration, very loving.
Yeah.
And I see them, actually. I'll just talk really quickly about that.
Yeah, I want to hear because I don't know if we've gotten into deeply about your experiences. I want to hear about yours.
Oh, well, I mean, in the Akashic records, this is what happens recently. My first initial experiences, well, I'll tell you about that in a minute, but was with Arcturian beings who I saw them as like big eyes, like almost like mothers. I call them like the Arcturian mothers, who probably helped create us, right? They helped birth us, and then and then other beings, brought in their little, it's like a recipe. Like we were making bread.
Some of that
sugar. We'll put in some, flour, and put in some milk, and we came from different places,
right?
And so they in the records, they sometimes come through, depending on the client and depending on me, as just with big eyes, just very loving and very just compassionate, and just, it's hard to even express. It is like angels, because it's hard to even express the love, it makes me emotional just even saying, and the love they have for us. They just love us unconditionally, and they want to help, and it's like we're their children. They birthed us, and that's kind of what has come up. Like they're just watching us grow, and they're here to help us, you know, just like parents whenever we're ready. And they just heal. So I've had experiences where I'm in the Akashic records and I'm lying flat, almost like on a Reiki table. Yep. And these beings are just, they say, just lie down. They're just doing energy healing. I had another experience with Pleiadians through this modality called Marconics, which I've heard is a little bit controversial. I don't totally I don't know anything about the people that do it, and I don't really care. But all I know is that this woman did a Marconics healing for me, which is channeling Pleiadian energy. So it's, you know, it's like but with Pleiadian energy. And so all she had me do, it was absolutely amazing. She said, okay, I'm going to text you to go lie down, and then an hour later, get up. and I had no contact with her, but I was lying on my bed, and I was feeling like all this, it was psychic surgery. They were pulling stuff out of me. They were like telling me that they were working on my body, like literally just taking things like implants or just energetic stuckness. And it was just the most amazing experience. And I was just, you know, and I was just lying there experiencing all of this in my mind. So that, you know, that's the power of what I believe a lot of these beings can do, is they can offer us this healing. And of course, the Akashic Records is simply a dimension where I, you know, when we enter in there, and everybody can learn how to do this, to go there, we're raising our vibration to enter into this healing dimension, but it doesn't have to be in there. One of the first experiences I had though was when I was meditating, and this, it was a gray, like one of the gray beings that, you know, we see in like all the movies that, you know, that look like aliens, like the big eyes, and it just like popped in my mind. I was just in meditation, all of a sudden it just, you know, I had my eyes closed, it showed up, and I was just like, what are you doing here? Like, what is that? It just, you know, and I was not scared, but I was like, just, what are you doing here? And I kind of was like, are you, you know, I was going deeper in energy. Like, are you benevolent? Are you not? And it was kind of like, they were just curious. Like, they were just kind of checking in on me. Like, oh, who are you? You know, and like they're showing themselves, and then it just went away. And I wasn't like totally interested in connecting with them again, because I was like, get out of here. It's like, you're interfering with my meditation. And that was the only time, you know, and I think the grays are like, I think they are like, some of them are helpful, some of them are maybe, you know, not. But anyway, so that's a lot of all of my experiences, except for one time, have been just in my mind's eye, you know, experiences like that. I did see something in the sky though with my husband last year that was like you know, like a little, looked like a shooting star, but it was bigger, and it would look like kind of like a UFO shape. It was very small, but then it just disappeared, you know, like it did that, you know, it did like that, that 90-degree thing. It just was so, it was just that, and we're like, what was that? Like, did you see that? And it was almost like, you know, so, you know, but I have had some, and more of it's just my, you know, a lot of the, you know, the telepathic connections, like messages that I pick up on. That are so powerful and so healing.
I think that's so important to bring up too, is that, you know, as humans, we're very sensory beings. We want our senses satisfied. We want to see, we want to touch, we want to feel, we want to, you know, see it in person. And that's something for me, when I first started getting into this world, you know, that's how I'm going to validate it. I want to see it. I want to see it with my own eyes, you know, and that what I've learned over the last, you know, year and a half is that contact comes in so many ways, in your dreams, in your sleep time, and your meditations, in physical ways, through movies, through videos. They're contacting you in a way that's right for you. And every soul has its contracts, right? So, you know, you hear about these abduction stories with the, you know, the grays, and the grays are a very interesting race because they don't have, you know, empathy the way that we do. They don't understand emotion. They don't understand fear. And so the thing that we have to remember though, is that they're not able to interfere with our free will. Even if the person doesn't consciously, you know, remember making these agreements, on a soul level, they're contracted to those experiences. And that's what we find through the quantum healing hypnosis, is that when people have these abduction stories or they have, you know, fearful experiences, that's the conscious mind putting up a defense mechanism. When you drop into the hypnotic state and we go into that subconscious mind, you see that there is so much more depth to it, that this was a beautiful experience. It was contracted. They're, you know, they're learning together. The Greys get a really bad rep. And like you said, sure, there might be some, we have that duality of, you know, positive versus negative, but we have to be really careful about that. And
Sure.
Kind of gets a little stage abductions, mutilations, things like that, to strike fear in the minds of humanity, to keep us under control. Because if we're in fear, they can control us.
Right. And that, it cut out a little bit when you were talking before. You said abductions and mutilations. What did you say before that? It was something about
just that, you know, we just have to be, we have to check in with our hearts about what is being told to us. And the governments, the world governments, are really going to try to keep us in fear. And that a lot of these abductions, stage mutilations, things like that are being presented to cause fear.
Cause fear. And that's something that, it's funny because you and I are like obviously connected in our brain waves and our frequency. Because I was thinking of like, all right, at some point, we'll talk about the negative alien influence or the negative alien intervention, but you know, I don't want to focus on that too much, because as we know, like what we focus on grows. But before we even do that, now I'm forgetting what it was. Maybe I'm just supposed to talk about this now, because I think you're talking about the Greys anyway. But I think now that, you know, with the governments and, you know, the mechanisms of control, like you said. Oh, I know, it was free will. Like that I think it is important. And I literally just talked about this yesterday, that, you know, it is important for us to remember that there are divine laws. And I think people go into a place of fear of thinking, oh, they're going to, what if, you know, the governments are going to control me, or they're, you know, or I'm going to have this happen, or they're going to take away this. And it sure does seem like that, you know, but like you said, at a fundamental level, we are sovereign beings. And unless we give our consent, if we give our consent and we believe that somebody can control us, or that we're, you know, victims, which is what we've been taught, then that will perpetuate that consciousness. But if we say, no, I'm free, I can do what I want, you can try to do that, but I'm just going to be like, whatever, that's a laugh. And that, I think that, and so that's what we're doing, is we're reclaiming our personal power and our sovereignty. And, you know, like you mentioned before, this comes up in the Akashic Records a lot, personal responsibility, that we can't just say, like, wait for these aliens to come save us and take us off on a spaceship to the planet. That it doesn't work like that. And actually, you know, so we're talking about a lot of things, but some people do, you know, there is this, like, you know, are we going to a different planet on the new Earth, and these spaceships are going to come down and take us there, those of us who have raised our consciousness enough? I don't know about that. What do you think about all that?
Oh, I've heard so many different things, and I read so many different things. You know, I've heard that it's a dimensional split that's happening, but I've also heard, you know, it comes down to timelines, because right now, you know, there's infinite timelines in our universe, in the multiverse. There's all these different timelines. If you can think it exists. It's in the quantum field as a potential. So, you know, anything that you're saying is both true and false. So that's what we were saying before, is that you choose what frequency and what reality you want to place yourself into. And that's what we're seeing right now, is there's all of this distraction. There's all this illusion. There's all this fear being pumped left and right. I mean, you're driving around, you're seeing vaccine, this, that. It's all subconscious programming to stay in fear. And we get to choose, you know, you get to choose if you want to exist in that macrocosm of hell, or you want to exist your microcosm of heaven. It's up to you. You can get sucked into that, or you can create your own reality as it is, and then everything around you is going to reflect that peace and love and beauty.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is absolutely true. And so, you know, since I alluded to it before, what do you think about who's doing some of this? And, and to, is it reptilians? Are they connected to the Anunnaki, and how are they? And like the governments, I guess we'll be careful about what we say here, but we're on Facebook, but
Yeah.
what do you think?
Yeah, I think I'll start by saying, the reptilians do get a really bad reputation. There is duality through and through. Every race, every planet, there's always duality. There's always positive and negative. There's been a lot of stories about these, entities infiltrating governments and things like that. I've gone down that rabbit hole, and I don't like to stay there. And all I'll say to that is that we're seeing all of that corruption coming to the surface.
Yes.
We're seeing it all. It's all being brought up. You're seeing it everywhere in every government across the world and all of Hollywood. You're seeing all of it come up, and that's what matters.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And it's true, because, I think we don't need to talk about it here, because anybody who wants to know more about what's happening, it's evil stuff. It's some really dark, evil things, the worst you can possibly imagine. But in the Akashic records, when I ask about that, they just are like, don't focus on that. Like, why do you need to focus on that? It's happening. That is part of the duality. Doesn't mean it's okay, but it's also like, how do we even not put judgment on that, or even condemn those who are engaging in that? Because and this does come up, and this is a radical concept, but I know you believe this too. Anybody, any human, or whatever aspect of human they are, they can come into the light, and we want to like help them like learn and make better choices, to like become and to move past ego and past control and service to self, which is what it is, right?
Yeah.
And moving into service to others, and that unity consciousness, and really, and I think it is super important for us to keep our vibrate. It's easier said than done, for sure. For me, it is, because there's anger. Like, look at what they're doing to us, but allowing the anger to be expressed, transmuting that, feeling those emotions, to then expand in our light, so we can embody that, like the Christ, the Christed one has showed us that we can all do that forgiveness. And what you were saying before is a little bit like the shadows on a collective level, like that we're all seeing the shadows come up, and it's also happening individually. I mean, I see it, you see it, because we work with people individually, that it's literally all the crap, like trauma from years past, anything that we haven't dealt with, anything that's unhealed, anything that we thought was healed, is all coming up to the surface to be cleared, to be processed, like maybe once and for all. Because we, in order to really expand into our higher levels of consciousness, and to contact and connect with these multidimensional beings, we have to clear out the shadows. We have to clear out that stuff.
Yeah. And you know what? When we get, really kind of down to the God particle theory, it's that, the all is the one. That we are all projections of the same overarching consciousness. You're a projection of my consciousness. I'm a projection of yours. We are all that source energy. And that means that all of good and all of bad are of that same source energy. It's just the duality. It's human perception that makes something good or bad. In the mind of God, everything is neutral. Everything is love, So, and we could go down a whole tangent there, but I think that if we want to follow in Jesus, the Christed one's footsteps, we have to find compassion for ignorance. We have to understand that those who are inflicting pain are coming from a place of pain and hurt and suffering themselves. And I remember, I think it was like a year ago, I was at like the dollar store, and I got one of those candles that had Archangel Michael on it, and it had a prayer on the back about how Archangel Michael slayed all of the demons and sent them back to hell. And that's not what we're doing here. We're not pushing them all down into the darkness. We're calling them up into the light. And that's what our job is. And as we keep raising our frequency and operating in a state of love against all odds, we're bringing everyone around with us. We're bringing everyone up collectively. That's why what you're saying before is so important. This isn't up to anybody else. It's up to us individually. Our own paths, our own consciousness is affecting everyone around us. Yeah. You know, there's that whole idea about the 144,000. If that number, that golden number of people awaken into that Christ consciousness, we take everyone with us. We're in the new earth. So that's why it's so important to do the work, to get in tune, to start opening your minds up, you know, and not fall into the darkness, but send love towards it, to send that light towards it.
Right. And nobody is going to save us, and nobody's going to do it for us. And that's important too, that this is our like individual response. That's like taking back personal responsibility, because we have that like savior complex, like, you know, just waiting for somebody else to come and just fix it. And and I think that you know, we're starting to move away from that, but even in you know, awakening circles, I've seen that, you know, and it's just, you know, it's our programming. It's another program that we're moving past. So I guess there's some people are saying there might be some interruptions in the connection. You know, we're doing what we can. So in terms of how do you feel that these beings, whether it's Pleiadians or Arcturians or any other being of, you know, light, how do you think, like, what do you think they want? I know we kind of talked about this already, but you say we do start, you know, regularly, this is the future, I think, of humanity, that we start regularly meditating and opening our hearts and coming from that unity consciousness and from pure love, that we could start like literally just having like all kinds of communication. What do you have any sense of what could that be like? Like what?
No, it's awesome.
The future. I mean, or from some of your experiences, but I'm just curious what you think.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's let's see. You know, what we were talking about before, there's all these different ways to make contact, but you know, what I've been focusing on right now has been learning the quantum healing hypnosis method by Dolores Cannon and accessing that super consciousness, like the Akashic records for you, you know, everyone has a different name for it. But when we access that realm, that dimension, those entities, those consciousness of light, when you open your mind, your third eye, you start actively, you know, engaging in meditation. And like you said, heart opening methods and practices, you're opening up a channel for more of that divine influence, which is not separate from you. You are a part of it. It's you. It's a higher aspect of your own consciousness. You're just able to tune into it more easily, because when you sink down into the lower vibrational emotions and energies of, you know, anger, frustration, despair, sadness, hatred, you are shrinking your field down so much, pulling that energy in, turning it into chemistry to make these lower vibrational emotions. You're turning it into adrenaline, cortisol, whatever. You're drawing from the field, you're shrinking it. And what that means is you perceive more separation from yourself, from everything around you. As you spend more time in meditation, opening your heart and raising your frequency through elevated emotion, and you start operating in gratitude and love and peace and acceptance, radical acceptance, you know, you're giving to your field, you're emitting energy. And when you emit that energy, you start having more connectivity. You're radiating source energy. And that's how we begin to elevate. We see the oneness of all things. And that doesn't need to be done through an ayahuasca ceremony. That's done through your own consciousness and meditation. Yeah. So at this point, I believe that meditation is essential. If you're not meditating yet, you got to hop on board. You know, we can help you with that. It's taming that unbridled stallion, as Dr. Joe Dispenza would say. It takes some work and effort, but the fruits of that labor are just indescribable.
Yeah, and it activates parts of the brain that
absolutely
activated. And so in a minute, I'm actually going to guide it in 10 minutes exactly. I'm going to guide us in a meditation. But before we do that, I'm sure that some people are wondering this. And since you've had some of these experiences, I'm going to ask you. So I think it's interesting to understand how some of these beings can show themselves to us. Like, you know, some of it's in the mind's eye, and we're, you know, as I have experienced, And I know that I'm still working through my own fear about like seeing something and, you know, it with my eyes open.
Yeah.
But I know that you have seen things with your eyes open, and that some of these beings are, they, like you said, they've evolved beyond physical bodies and they just are in light.
Yep.
But some of them actually do have physical bodies and some actually look like humans.
Yeah.
Some don't look like humans at all. Can you talk a little about that? Whatever you're.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I mean, if you think about the vastness of this universe, anything that you can think of exists. Because if you can think of it exists in the quantum field, you're tapping into some potential.
Yeah.
So whatever you come up with in your mind, it exists out there somehow, some way. And when it comes to the beings, I mean, we've done past life regression and seen different entities. I've done some on my own, seen so many different things with my own eyes. You know, in meditation, I've seen very tall, beautiful light beings enter into my room and do energetic work. And, you know, my limbs are floating around, crazy shit's happening like that. And then, you know, I think I told you about an experience I had recently where I was laying in bed and I felt the energy get really strong in the room. And my intention was contact through that week. And, you know, I'm just kind of sitting there and all of a sudden it's hard to describe it because how do you have the words for something that's transdimensional? But it was this crystalline light entity that manifested itself in my space, and the vibration was so high in the room I was nearly buzzing, and it was so beautiful, so iridescent, and these colors I'd never seen before. And I remember sitting there looking at it and just being like, this isn't scary, you know, because we have all these anticipations of what it's going to be like. And yeah, so they can come in so many different ways, but remember, you have your own contracts, you have your own ways of perceiving, and you'll get there at the right time and the right way. But your intention to work through fear and asking them to help you, because like we said before, they can't interfere without our permission. So you have to ask them.
And if our free will, and through our free will, and this is the case too with any sort of intuitive work, as you know, and I teach this in some classes, that if there's a subconscious fear that says this isn't safe, don't do this, or I don't want to do this, then that will be respected. And so we won't, even though part of us is like, no, but I want to see my angels and I want to see the Arcturians and I want to hear, you know, from my spirit guides or whatever. But if there's so that's why it's so important to do that ego work, to like, what is this fear about? Where did it come from? Do I really believe it? And just starting to really clear it and heal it. It's just, but
back and forth with the connection here.
Go ahead. Now I can hear you. Yeah. Oh, maybe not.
Oh, you can hear me?
Okay. Yeah. Now.
Guys, come on. So, well, a lot of this fear too comes from the programming and all of the films, all the TV about ET. It's all, you know, these terrifying, scary beings. That doesn't just leave your consciousness. Even just seeing a movie trailer, that sticks in your subconscious mind, you know, and it can be from past lifetimes. Like a lot of the fear I had was from past lifetimes, but a lot of this was intentional propaganda to strike fear on a subconscious level so that people don't want to make contact.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. And I think, you know, with this is true, I think, for any form of spirit or any form of consciousness, they will show themselves to us like you did in a way that they feel, you know, is safe, that we can connect with the most. So if it's like seeing a form of light, like you said, that feels safer, that's where they'll show themselves. I have, in my mind's eye, when I see like the Pleiadians, it's interesting because I see them as like beams of blue light. And it's interesting. It's like, that's how they show themselves to me. It's like, it's, you know, and it is like for the three sisters, it's like three. So it's, it's all very fascinating. So,
yeah. And there is no right or wrong way to.
Yeah. Oh, so here's something. All right. This is interesting. Somebody just mentioned this. This is a good way to this is a good way to maybe conclude. Somebody mentioned God. So how do these beings, well, and in a sense that some people, they pray, including, well, I do this a little bit, and I know I know what I would say about it. You'd probably say the same thing, but for people who are maybe worried about putting too much emphasis on multidimensional beings, as if they're like praying to them versus God, or, which sometimes that happens with angels. What would you say to people who are maybe, thinking about it that way or worried about that, if that makes sense?
The first place that my mind goes to, and something that I want to point out, is being human hard, being in the third dimension, this third density, it's hard. And
sorry, say that again. What did you say?
Oh yeah, I don't know what's going on. What I was saying is that being here as a human being on Earth in this third density, in this third dimension, it's hard. We came here to learn. Earth is a school. Like there are billions of souls lined up to incarnate on this planet because of how hard it is to be here right now, especially with these energies going on. These higher dimensional beings, they're not above us. We don't have to look up and worship them. They think we're rock stars being here because we are all fractals of Source, of God. We're all one. We're all just each other in different flesh suits or different energies, whatever it is. There is no power over us. There isn't. We're all the same. And that's something that I had to work through myself. I caught myself, like worshiping them, not worshiping, but, looking up to them and feeling smaller or less than them, until I realized you're just me. You're just a different version of me. Yeah. And that's it. You're connecting with yourself. And when you think of it that way, it kind of helps a lot of that fear fade away.
Absolutely. And I think, without getting into offending people's faith, I won't mention specific religions, but traditional religion, a certain one in particular, has created that separation by making us believe that, God or Jesus is, that we are nothing like that, that we could never be anything like that, that we're like these, we're insignificant little, sinful things, that could never reach that level. And that is, I think, one of the most heartbreaking, forms of programming is to try convincing us that, that God is out there somewhere else, that we need to strive to connect with and hope that we're good enough to connect with God, which is often, him, in a patriarchal language. And if that works for people, I sometimes do it. I sometimes think of God in a patriarchal way. Sure. And we all have it. A lot of us still have that. And so I will say, without trying to offend anybody, if that works for you, that's totally fine. But, what I believe in, and I know that this is what you're saying too, is that we are, and all these beings are expressions of God, that is that source energies. The source energies, this great book by Neil Donald Walsh called The Little Soul in the Sun. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No, I don't know that one.
It's a kid's book, but it's really, actually really good. And I got it for my daughter, and she wants me to read it to her all the time. But it talks about that in a very simplistic way, that that we are all, that we are, the source energy is just that it wants to know itself, and it wants to express itself in a different way, right?
Yeah.
And that
infinite ways.
Yes, and so whether it's expressed itself as a human or as a reptilian, or even, or as
on your counter, it doesn't matter.
Yes, exactly. And that is I think what we're all learning is that it is not somewhere out there, that is it's us. It's not like I am God and I'm like this all powerful ego, thing that I have control of everybody else, but that I am one with you, and that, like you said, we're all connected. So, I do think personally, it helps me to connect with my higher self and with angels. And I like to think of, I connect with beings that I know are higher vibration than I am, and they have more wisdom to help me you know, as a human, as the expression of source energy in human form, to remember who I am, really, because we have this, it's a name, you know, the law, I don't know if it's a law, but of amnesia, that we don't know, we come into this life not remembering anything in our past lives, or anything that we are, anything more than just walking around, you know, like, what the heck's going on here in this place? But that's part of our soul growth, is that we come in each life with that. So,
and that too, like, just to kind of wrap that up, you know, that amnesia is specific to Earth. You know, that's what makes Earth so challenging, is that we do come in having our memories wiped clean. We don't remember who we are. And when you are going back to what you were just saying about, you know, tapping into that angelic frequency or into these higher dimensional beings, it's a fraction, not a fact. And when you are going out and making contact, I hope I'm still connected. I don't know if you can hear me, but when we are making contact, I want everyone a little bit. Okay. I really want everyone to understand that when you're going out and you're making contact, set the intention so strongly and so clearly that you are only available to make contact with beings of the highest light and love, serving humanity, serving source, serving the light. Because if you set that intention, that's what you're going to get. So make sure to set that intention, open your heart, ask them to help you with your fear, ask them to give you the eyes to see, and be open to the type of contact experiences that you could have. Doesn't have to be physical with your eyes.
Absolutely. And, you know, and I think we'll just wrap this up, because this is all, we can talk for hours, but when I first, you know, I was worried about, when I first started waking up, I was reading about these lower vibrational, you know, beings, and, you know, some of the really dark negative things that were occurring. And I was starting to get worried about that, well, if I open up my intuition, are they going to try to come in and like mess with my consciousness and, you know, program me and put implants in me and all this stuff. And I realized, well, only if I want them to, you know, and if I don't want them to, and some people do, I think it's important, like, some people do dabble in dark, you know, darkness, and because they're curious. And I think some people don't realize what they're doing and what they're opening with, what's happening, and they can get attached, spirit attachments and all kinds of other stuff.
Right.
But when I learned, I was like, oh, all I have to do is set that intention that I want to focus on love and can bring in light, and, you know, connect with pure love and any being. And I only say all the time, anything, only love and pure love. Then it's like that lower vibrational stuff is like a different highway. It's like, I see it, I see what they're doing, I see what's happening on that highway, but I don't go on that highway. They don't come on my highway. And I don't really try to pay much attention to that highway, because if I was looking at them, this is interesting, I've never said this before. If I was looking at them the whole time, I might crash, you know, because I don't want, or I might like eventually deviate off onto their highway. So I don't want to give them too much energy. And I think this is important. So going down like the rabbit hole and the conspiracy theory stuff, which, you know, I've definitely done it too, but I've come back out of it because I realized that when I started focusing on things, there's all kinds of, you know, not everything is truth. Like there's truth and there's untruth in everything. And I realized, like, what is happening in my body when I read this, or when I, you know, is it fear? Is it anger? You know, yes, of course, there's probably anger and fear because some of these things are true, but ultimately, like, it's like, I need to bring myself back into what's ultimately going to be helpful and moving humanity forward. And so it's like, yes, being aware of that, but not giving too much energy to it, certainly not giving them more power than they need or deserve, but focusing on, you know, where we're headed and creating the new earth. And what are we building? So
right. And just having that acknowledgement. And we were talking about a little bit earlier that, you know, even the souls that slip into the darkness, they're on their own ascension towards, you know, the light, towards source. It's always onwards and Godwards. That's end of the day. You know, we're all going to return to source at some point. So
that's good. You said that, because I think sometimes we tend, myself included, we tend to be like, oh, blame, you know, like that they're doing something wrong. But it is important to remember that these are part of our soul growth. This is like, maybe that soul had some contract to experience these energies, or to go into that, and to even say, I'm going to, you know, not awaken in this lifetime, that I am going to be like still plugged into the matrix.
Yeah.
Because that's what my soul wants to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Experience existence from that perspective of reality. Absolutely. And there is no good or bad. Thinking makes it so. So yeah.
Well, so Kaitlyn, could you share with us anything else you want to say before we leave, or and how, you know, anything, any words you have to help people carry this forward, and then tell us how we can find you, how they can find you, the work you're doing and stuff like that.
Yeah, you know, one thing I just want to say is that everything that I talked about tonight is my truth. Everything that I shared is my truth. And if it resonates with you, it resonates with you. If it doesn't, leave it. It's up your own, you know, concepts of what is right and good for you. So if something I said didn't feel good and for you, let it go. Let it go. And with that being said, I mean, I'm here to serve. I'm here to anchor light. Whoever did, you know, pop into this talk that we had, I'm sending you so much love. I can feel their presence. And if you want to tap into that energy, this is a great opportunity to set those intentions. They're here, they're listening. And if you want to work with me, I am accepting new clients. You can go to soul-magic-magic.com. And reach out, and got a lot to offer. So Thank you for having me here. This was awesome.
Thank you so much, Kaitlyn. I just typed in your website here. This has been so awesome, and I feel like we should just, you know, keep doing this. keep doing
I would love to.
You know, and you know, and how old are you? Can you tell everybody how old you are? Just because
I'm 27.
27. Okay, so you're young, like, you know, I'm 43, you know, it's like, I didn't wake up until I was 35, I think, something like that. And people who are, you know, these young people, I mean, you're not that much younger than I am, but, you know, young people today, like you said, so many star seeds that are here, like you are, just, you know, you kind of, have you always been like awakened, or did something happen? Like,
no, I 6 years ago, it all just kind of clicked.
Oh, that's for me, 6 or 7 years ago. Interesting. But so that was, you know, you were in your early 20s, but I think, you know, that's so many children are so awakened, and they're here anchored in high vibration. It's really, and I think it's important to emphasize, I know you've been doing this, but just how, in spite of like all the it seems like complete insanity, like opposite world in some ways that we're seeing right now, that it just means that just shows us how strong the light is. The light is so strong. So many people are awakening, and it doesn't matter. Like, it's, I mean, it matters, and it matters and it doesn't, you know, just deeper energy and what we're creating. Yes, we speak sometimes, but from love, from compassion, from empathy. And and people like, you know, there's people like you that can help people really expand their consciousness. I certainly try to do that too. There's so many out there.
Fantastic job. Oh my God.
And there are people that are going to be that are being called to do this work. And I think some people think, oh, well, there's, how can I do this? Like, there's an endless need.
Let us be the expanders to your consciousness. I mean, if we can both build businesses doing this from the ground up, anyone can do it. I'm telling you, you know, we weren't business majors in school, but this path is divinely guided. We've got, you know, eons of support behind us, pushing us. So if you're feeling this calling into these alternative modalities, into this healing work, follow it. It's not going to go away. I have full chills even as I say that. It won't go away. Follow that.
Yep. Yeah, it's really an exciting time to be alive. People are more and more ready, and we're just, you probably a lot of you here are going to be called into doing that as well, helping people remember and activate and heal. Somebody just wrote yours, Kaitlyn, thank you. You were truly a special speaker tonight. That's really
thank you so much. What an honor.
Well, thank you. And I'm going to conclude this, just do a short 10-minute meditation to help us kind of bring in light and connect and just raise our vibration to open up connection. So I'll do that now. Thank you so much, Kaitlyn.
Thank you, Rachel.
Blessing. All right. So let's see. We'll put things on mute, just have it be totally quiet. All right, so let's do some meditation here then. So I'm gonna close my eyes. Anybody here who's listening, you're welcome to close your eyes as well. Just begin to take some deep breaths. And as you breathe in, just breathe in light. Breathe in the intention of expansion. And as you breathe out, just let go of anything that isn't serving you in this moment. Just let it flow out of your body. Another deep, full breath, and just holding that breath for a moment. And then slowly, slowly let it out. And begin to just anchor into your body. So just take a moment to observe all the systems in your body working together. It's truly a miracle to be alive in these human bodies. And so take a moment to notice what a privilege it is to be in the body that you're in, to be a soul, a powerful source of light in this vessel. And take a moment to acknowledge and to remember that you are here on a very important mission. And that it took a lot of courage, an incredible amount of courage, to sign up to volunteer for this task. And so the beings who are here with us right now are guiding this meditation. And they want you to really honor yourselves. Really honor yourselves and learn to just love yourselves. Just take that moment right now to just feel what it would feel like to truly love yourself. Just like you would love a child or a pet. But send that love to an internal place. And feel it radiating in your heart and spreading through your body. Feel this love at a deep level. The love that you are generating from within yourself can be like a magnet for other beings who are like you, who are out there. And it's out there and it's also within, not just in the sky, but within your consciousness. Just like going into the Akashic records is not going to some place, it is right here, right there around your body, stored within your cells as memories of who you are and who you have been. And when you learn to love yourself, you then give others the permission to step into that love as well. And when each one of us, each human soul, learns to unconditionally love themselves, we then treat each other as we would treat something that we love. We then treat the earth and each element of the earth with tenderness, caring for our Mother Earth, for Gaia, and learning to accept one another for who we are, unconditionally, without judgment, without condemnation. Let's just take a moment and feel what it would feel like to exist in this state. This is ascension. This is fifth dimensional consciousness that you are receiving, that you are embodying right now in this moment, that we've each been guided to experience what that is, how that comes to be, and how we open up the lines of communication with all these beings. This is the vibration. Let's feel that just for a few moments here. We are being asked to do this as much as we can now that you've experienced this heart opening, this what feels like a pushing out of the vessel that you're in, out into the space around you. This is what we're being asked to step into. And the more we take a few minutes every day, just a few minutes, to feel this light, to feel this love for self and love for others, that we attune, that we're attuning our frequencies to these higher states of consciousness. And it's happening. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to aspire. We don't have to worry about being good enough or being ready. It just is. And we can just allow it and maybe create the opening with our intention, with our free will. So let's take a moment and just give thanks for this energy, for this activation that we've just received from highly evolved, loving beings that are just like us. If you want to bring your hands in prayer position to your heart center, you're welcome to do that over your heart in your lap, just giving gratitude in some way. Honoring yourselves for taking this time, for being here. And I honor each of you for being here, for receiving this light, for sharing in this space with us, honoring Kaitlyn for sharing her light. May we be guided, may we be supported, may we be courageous in our expansion, in our awakening, in our stepping into unconditional love for self and for others. Always guided by light and by the energy of pure unconditional love. May it be so, and so it is. And so you can begin to open your eyes and just come back in your bodies, just maybe feeling a little bit of, letting your aura come a little bit closer to you, because we just did a huge expansion. That was, I just started doing what essentially was just coming through me when I was being guided to share. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Kaitlyn, for holding the space. It was emotional for me. I don't know,
I feel so much love.
Yes, yes, yes. And it's funny, we didn't talk about love, self-love, but that was like a very strong, just like love yourself, love yourself, love yourself. When you love yourself, you're loving others.
You're all you have, right?
Exactly. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Kaitlyn. It's been such an honor and a blessing. Thank you all who are here on Facebook. So I'm going to end the Facebook Live video first. So have a wonderful evening. You know where to find Kaitlyn. You know where to find me. If you have any questions about anything, check out that movie, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. You can just do internet search and find it, right? And we'll put some links in. I'll put some links in of some of the other resources we mentioned, the books as well. So, all right. Many blessings. Good night, everybody.